Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan, uh, uh, Joe Biden is going to ban all handguns. Um, that is something that I'm sure some in the right wing media will be pushing out there to fairmonger to the audience. But the reality is, what actually happened is Joe Biden has been floating the idea of a handgun ban, which I think is interesting because Canada, that has very restrictive gun laws, which have been very effective, they don't have the shootings that we have, just did some kind of handgun ban when we're the ones that had the shooting. So because of our shooting, they like I find that timing kind of interesting. But anyway, um, I want this video is really for folks on the left, especially more centrists, liberals. Um, I want you guys to let this be sort of a teaching experience. I want you to use this to realize the scam of how the Democrats operate. We know both parties are basically two sides of the same coin. They're both fraudulent parties. But right now we're talking about the Democrats, right? I've got a ton of videos calling out the fraudulent Republicans. So I want to give you guys some facts, and I want you to consider what that means and what that tells you about the Democrats. So here's the situation. If Joe Biden successfully bans handguns, I will give $1,000 to the first person who contacts me and says, "Hey, you were wrong." I am so confident that he is not going to ban handguns that I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. So if he actually does it, now when I say he does it, I mean an actual ban is put in place, and whatever gun buy, whatever it is, right? It's no longer you can have guns, and then stores stop selling them, and whatever the deal is, right? That's not going to happen. We are so stuck in this tribal sort of polar left and right situation that you have one side of the country that is so fairmongered to about the idea of them they're going to come and take our guns, that you can't even have a conversation about even extending one more day. Like maybe there's a 10-day waiting period, and someone says, what about 11 days? You can't even have that conversation. You got Republican politicians that will float all these ridiculous ideas that it's just theater, right? None of them are actually pushing for these ideas. They're not fundraising for them or actually advocating for them. They're they're acting like civilians, like us, the public, right? We could, they should do this and they should do that, right? As if they're not in a position to actually make things happen. They don't have power to actually make things happen. That's a game, right? So in a country where we can't even have a conversation about the very basics of, let's increase it from 18 years to 19 years or anything small, the idea that they would be able to actually ban handguns is absolutely absurd. But this is a very emotional country, and there's millions of Americans that you can get to believe that is an actual possibility. And you can make money from them by fair-mongering to them. You make a video, oh, the Democrats coming for the guns and slippery slope and whatever, and people eat that up, and you can make a lot of money and grow your fan base or whatever it is by pretending as if that's a reality. But here's what I want. So those of you guys on the left, I want you guys to notice something. There's a lot of support for certain types of basic gun reform, right? That has a lot of support. There's even support among Republican voters as well, right? So a lot of Americans support some level of enhanced restrictions on firearms. So that's fact number one. Fact number two, the Democrats are in a very bad state right now. Losing the election is actually good for them, but this is my political theory, right? They don't want to lose by too much. If they lose by too much, they can fall too far behind, and that means a lot of consecutive Republican terms. And as long as that continues, they can just keep sliding and sliding and sliding, and who knows how long before they'll be able to get back in power. They're fine with the bouncing back and forth. They're in power, Republicans in power. They're in power, Republicans in power. When they're out of power, they get to go on vacation because they can't do anything. When they're in power, they pretend as if they can't do anything, but it's a little more work because they have to come up with excuses and be a little bit more creative. But when they're out of power, you don't have to be creative at all because the Republicans will not allow them to do anything. Right? Once Republicans are in power, they can't do anything. So they'll have a legitimate excuse. So that means they can just sit on their asses for terms. But they don't want to lose by too much, and they're heading in a direction where that could be a possibility. I don't think the next election is going to be as drastic as people think in terms of the margins. But this is some serious stuff when you talk about the power dynamics of our politics. So you don't want to play around and get too arrogant and think that we're fine. There's a potential that they could fall too far behind right now. So they need a win, right? They need as many wins as they can get so they can, basically scam their voters back into the party and be able to get back in power, in not too distant future, right? So with that being said, they need to have a win. You have popular, gun restrictions that, you have even Republican voters that they will support. So if Joe Biden actually wanted to deliver, he actually wanted to do something about gun safety, and considering that he needs a win, obviously he's going to push for the stuff that has the most support, right? Obviously, he's running out of time. We're in the midterms right now. He doesn't have time to be fooling around. So why would he ignore the layup and instead be talking about a thing that he knows he absolutely cannot accomplish? Right? When have we known Joe Biden to be Mr. Ambitious, right? I mean, he'll talk some rhetoric, but he's never been like a big ambitious guy. Isn't he the guy that said nothing's going to fundamentally change? So why would he be talking in this critical moment, running out of time, things are looking really bad, and he's going to play around with, maybe we can ban all the guns, instead of taking an easy win with pushing for some whatever restrictions that has the most support and therefore the highest probability of success, instead of pushing for that aggressively where you have the best chance of getting a win. Why would he be talking about banning guns when he knows there's no chance of doing that? I think this is yet again another demonstration of clearly how fraudulent Joe Biden is and how he plays his voters and the left for fools, and that this is all theater, right? Why would he talk about banning guns? Because he knows that politically there's going to be a lot of folks on the left that'll be like, okay, yeah, we should ban these weapons. Right? You can fearmonger to them about all these shootings and blah 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 whatever, and we need to look at all these other countries, and like that narrative will work with a lot of people on the left. And one thing, politically, what works is you want to contrast yourself with your opponents, right? So if the Republicans are talking about, oh, no, it's Second Amendment and, don't do anything, like just thoughts and prayers, right? Then Joe Biden knows that what will work best for him politically is for him to present himself as much contrasted with the Republicans. So they're talking about thoughts and prayers. I'm talking about let's ban all the guns, right? And then he might even go as far as to actually make some motions that he's actually going to do it. Maybe do something where he tries to pass it in the House, and it passes in the House, and then of course it gets killed in the Senate, and they can say, see, we're the party that actually try to do something about these things, and Republicans, they're blocking it. And he talked about, look at all these kids that got killed, and This is a typical Democrat playbook, right? Where it's all fake, right? Let me pretend to fight with Joe Manchin, my good friend, while he protects the party's donors by blocking my legislation that I don't really want to do, right? Build Back Better? How's that going to help my donors? My donors don't want Build Back Better, but my voters like the sound of it. How can I keep talking about this thing and never actually do it? Oh, Joe Manchin, right? When it fails, we tried, but this Joe Manchin guy. But meanwhile, I'm not going to call out Joe Manchin on all of his corruption because he's my buddy. Instead of pushing for the things that he has the best chance of being successful with, Joe Biden is talking about banning handguns. A lot of folks on the right call out Joe Biden all the time, but yet they fall for his scams and take him seriously. They actually believe in this political theater that he's actually going to try to ban guns. And they'll talk about, look at Canada's doing it, and people thought they weren't, and now Canada's doing it, and look at other countries, and this and that, and slippery slope, and would you have thought that we would have done the things we did during the pandemic, like 5 years ago? Would you have ever thought that? And now you think they wouldn't just ban all the guns? It's not a matter of what the government would like to do or would try to do. It's a matter of This is a democratic republic or constitutional republic, whatever you want to call it. So the most powerful force in this country is we the people. There's simply far too many people that are adamantly against banning of firearms. I mean, passionately so. So there's just simply no way that you can, unless you turn this country into a dictatorship, it can't happen. It cannot happen. People look at it with the pandemic. There was tons of support for the lockdowns, right? Yes, you had people that didn't like it, but there were tons of people that actually supported it and felt like, we're gonna make the sacrifice to get the numbers down or whatever. So it's not shocking that they did the lockdowns. Government can only do what the people allow them to do, and we allowed the lockdowns. There wasn't a large enough group of people opposing the lockdowns to stop the government from doing it. Now, notice at some point, people got tired of it, and the numbers of people that were against it grew. And now, guess what? No more lockdowns. What happened when the amount of people that were against lockdowns grew to be too high? They couldn't do it anymore. You don't think they were thinking about doing it for like Omicron or whatever it was? Everything the government does is a calculated move based on what they think they can get away with, what they think we will allow them to do. Americans are not allowing the government to take away our guns. Joe Biden knows it. The Republicans know it. The right-wing media folks like Ben Shapiro, whoever's out there that might be fear-mongering about, slippery slope, they know it. You simply cannot do a gun ban in this country. It just can't happen. You can do when I say gun, I mean like all pistols or whatever. You can do a assault rifle, like you can target assault rifle, right? You can do an AR-15. I mean, we've done that before, right? But even that stuff, again, people got to take stock of like what's happening. This is not the same country that it was when we did the ban on assault rifles. I don't know what they called it back then, but it's not the same country. I mean, things have been going off the rails, and then Trump just really pushed it off the rails. At this point, things are at an extreme level of partisanship and tribalism. We're so divided right now that the current climate does not allow for, I don't even think, again, something that we've already done before, I don't even see us being able to pull that off. Again, if we can't even add a few days more in a waiting period, how in the hell are they going to do a gun, ban all pistols or something like that? If the Democrats really wanted to do something big, that's not one of the really popular things, the closest thing that kind of sounds like what we're talking about that they would do would be an optional gun buyback. That I could see them doing, because that's perfect. It's a lot of publicity. It feels like they're doing something. It feels like they're serious. But all the people who are pro-gun, 2A people, they would keep their guns, right? Because it's not a mandatory gun buyback, right? But that's the most extreme that I could see in today's climate. And if I'm wrong on anything, then it's like they actually can do an AR-15 ban or something. I'm not intimately familiar with the numbers in terms of support for something like that. Maybe the numbers are bigger than I would think. And that's the thing. The whole basis is based on what amount of we the people will be okay with the thing. That's a determination. So it's not about slippery slope or they're going to try. They're not going to do nothing that we're not going to allow them to do. So unless you can see the numbers, and there got to be massive numbers of people that will be okay with a thing, it ain't happening, right? It's not happening. Because if you go against the people, and I don't mean something casual, right? That's the thing. You got to make a distinction. The government definitely will go against the people. If it's something where they see, like for example, minimum wage, it was very clear that you didn't need to do anything about minimum wage. You could tell that the left was not going to fight. That was very, very clear from the beginning. So they ignored them. Tons of support for increasing minimum wage. They didn't do anything about it because they didn't have to. So it's not just about what we would like, right? It's about what would we fight for. People will fight for their guns. I don't mean necessarily like they're going to actually fight like in terms of war. But I mean, the pro-gun crowd is not going to allow the government to just take their guns the way the left allowed the Biden administration to do nothing about minimum wage, nothing about healthcare, right? All the stuff they promised to just not do it. This is not an issue like that. This is an issue that you cannot go against the will of the people because the people will not stand for it. It's very, very clear. And because of that, and probably that alone, nothing will happen. So those of you guys on the left, I want you to pay very close attention to, again, the fact that Joe Biden, instead of focusing on things that are popular, he's talking about a ridiculous handgun ban that he clearly knows will never happen. And remember this, because this is a tactic they use all the time. So remember this. So in the future, when you see Democrats making moves about something, and there's different things being talked about, look at what's popular versus what he's talking about. Look at what he talks a lot about versus what he actually makes moves towards, right? You got to learn the tricks. This is Baby Channel. Debate in the comment section below. Click on the like button. Subscribe. Smash that bell. Be well.